You're in tune to the search engine. Legacy 90.1. Big shout goes out to the one and only Tiny G, dancing DJ, keeping you entertained, drive time style. Every Thursday. Okay, this week on the search engine, candid conversation, as always. And as always, your views and opinions are wanted, needed, and much, much, much appreciated. And you can get in touch this evening, as usual, text line 075 9964 2626, 075 9964 2626. You can also give us a call 0161 222 5636. Always great to hear your voice. And we are live on YouTube and also on Facebook, so you can get involved on Legacy 90.1 on Facebook and also on SEUK Global on YouTube. You can send us your messages there and let us know your views and opinions. And I will say from the start, views and opinions expressed on the search engine this evening are not necessarily the views and opinions of Legacy Radio. We're not here to upset, we're not here to offend, we're not here to harass your earlobes. Just sharing information, bringing conversation and topics that maybe should be talked about much more, isn't talked about a lot, especially this evening. The topic that we're going to be discussing is not talked about enough. Ironically, I don't think on the search engine we've had this particular topic definitely linked to our community anyway. What we're going to be talking about, we're going to be talking about the abuse of young women, particularly the abuse of young women from elderly men or older men within the black community. And as I was saying on this show previously, I have done shows to do with that guy, what's his name, Epstein, and discussions around Savile. We've talked about the cases of underage grooming which took place in Rotherham and those places. But when we kind of like came together to have this discussion for the show, it made me realize we've never really had this conversation close and up close to home. So this evening it's kind of a link-up show, similar to how I do the Meet Tap Talks. This is the Meet the Community, the Concerned Citizens group. So I'm going to be joined by the Concerned Citizens group this evening to discuss this topic and to talk about what it's about and why we're not talking about it and how much of us are being affected by this. Now, it was brought to the attention of the Concerned Citizens group by a young lady from London called Afua Rose, and Afua hopefully will be joining us this evening. And as a result of seeing what Afua posted about the situation that was taking place in London down south, they were touched by what she said, and they decided that they're going to take up this campaign and bring it down to Manchester, bring it down north, and say, yeah, come on, let's have this conversation. Let's keep this talk going. This is a very important topic, and it's a topic that should be taking place not just in Manchester but around the whole country. Any form of abuse is abhorrent, just unacceptable, and the consequences of the types of abuse that take place are long lasting and long life devastating. So we're going to be talking about that topic, and it is a sensitive topic because abuse is something that stays with you for a long time, so things can be said that trigger memories, so therefore we're treading lightly on this topic, but at the same time sharing things that we feel, as I said, needs to be talked about. We do have also a few guests on this show who have the background in this area of abuse and psychotherapy, as Afua when she does join us. So we are in good company, and we will also be sharing contacts in which you can get support if you feel that something that's been discussed this evening has in any way touched you or brought up memories. I'm going to just introduce those who are with us currently this evening, and then after that I want to just play you just to bring you up to speed as to the reasons why the Concerned Citizens Group decided that they wanted to take this campaign and run with it down in the north. So I'm going to be playing you a clip of the interview, not the interview, the clip of Afua, which when she spoke about the disgust that she had about the abuse of young girls that were taking place down London, to kind of give you the platform for this discussion for this evening. And as I said, your involvement's wanted, needed, and much appreciated. You can do that by text 075 996 2626. You can give us a call 01612225636. And we're also on Facebook and YouTube. So let me say good evening to the guys that are with us currently this evening. So let's start with you, Sonia. Good evening. How are you?
Hi.
Hold on a minute. That's better. Can I hear you now?
Hi, Anthony.
Yeah, that's much better. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. Very good. I'm glad we're here having this discussion. It's about time.
Definitely. And we're going to go more into depth. I'm just saying hello. Find out a bit more about you in a little while, and also say hello to Sonia. Sonia, I just said Sonia. Sorry, Sandy. It's the S's.
That's all right. Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sandy. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at CAN. So that's the Caribbean and African Health Network. And I also lead the Domestic Violence and Sexual Abuse Project. Thank you.
Seeing as you gave us that introduction there, I'm going to have to go back to you now, Sonia. And you have to give us at least a couple of sentences on you.
I've worked in and around my side for the last 20 odd years. I work with children and families, and I just love my side. I live around my side, and yeah, I'm just an invested, concerned community citizen.
Excellent. And Nick?
Hi, he's all right. Yeah. I've just founded a youth mentoring charity. I'm seen as a frontline mentor and pretty much one of the representatives of North Manchester. Okay,
brilliant. Find out a bit more, especially want to just get a little introduction into the Concerned Citizens Group and what that's about. Is Charles still with us? I've got somebody else. Zaid H. Somebody's in on audio. Who that is? All right, I'll deal with them in a bit. Right, what I want to do is I just want to play a clip from Afua. Afua hopefully will join us through the show. But let's just start this clip and then we'll go for a break and then we'll come back. Just give you a bit of an understanding of what it was that caught the ear of the Concerned Citizens Group and why they started this campaign. Okay, so yeah, listen very clearly and think views and opinions wanted, needed, and much appreciated. Here we go. Afua Rose talking her things.
So I guess it did go viral. I didn't even really understand what viral was when I used the language and all the rest of it. And I'm glad it's gone as big as it got. I actually expect it only to really go in Brixton circles, but it's actually gone bigger than that, which means that even more victims are coming forward. Some people have moved away. You get it? They've moved away. What I'm saying is that I know that what I have, and especially with all the other sisters that have come forward, is a massive case against a historic predatory paedophile in our community. That's what I do know, okay? So I'm not just going to lick a shot without being sure, without verifying it with certain older heads and OGs in the community. This is what you've got to understand. The community is behind us. And I don't really care what people say, okay? I don't care what they say. I am here for the victims. That's what I'm here for. Within 1 hour of me putting that video up, I was hit up by 22 separate sisters, and there's more coming. I'm dealing with them. People need to talk what they know, because I am. And I'm telling you here and now, okay, I'm not taking back my talk. I'm not intimidated. I stand for truth, rights, and justice, and for freedom and equality for everybody, particularly my sisters in my community. In every generation, in each situation, somebody has to stand up and be counted and put an end to tyranny. That person just happened to be me. Not because I'm looking beef, not because I'm a bad girl, not any of that. Yeah? Not because I'm looking for clout, not because I'm an actress. Like I've heard some of the haters saying, some of them quite close to me, actually. That's interesting. It's very interesting how victim blaming and blaming the messenger, especially when it's a sister that stands up against the tyranny of men, particularly our own men. Yeah? It's very interesting how the backlash comes at the individual and at the victims and everybody else. I stand for the victims. I stand for the victims, and actually I don't really give a poop about what anybody else says. I put up a video in response. Somebody very, very close to me, my daughter's godmother, told me that she too was a victim. So it was time for me to speak up. That's what triggered me, for all of you that want to know. That's what triggered me. Yeah? We can't have it anymore. The time for the wall of silence in the black community is over. We need to root out, like my teacher, my personal teacher used to say, Dr. Khalid Muhammad, root it out of our communities. Cut off its head and hang it on a pole in the black community. We've had enough. We've been damaged enough. Slavery, exclusion, racism, everything. Yeah, black women have had enough. It's one thing that we have to fight the white man and being raped on the plantation and everything else. And another thing that we have to have these brothers that are equally as damaged, and sisters have had enough. It's bad enough we have to fight the man without the brothers in our community putting us through these situations. I don't need no evidence. The victims are the evidence. The people I'm still talking to, they are the evidence. Anyone who wants to give me death threats or threats to anybody in the organizations that I belong to or whatever, be very careful, because this thing is real. And as far as I'm concerned, I fear no one but the most high living creator. Anyone who knows me knows this. Yeah, I fear nobody but he. Even my own family, because of the hype and the messages, have been saying, oh, you know, are we at danger and everything else? No, we're at no danger. I don't fear no one today, especially not when it comes to standing up to the tyranny of these dirty pedophiles. That is my life's work. I am a therapist. I'm an activist. That is my life's work, to stand up to tyranny. First thing that needs to happen is that victims need to be held to be feeling comfortable. Victims need to know that they're able to speak to people, feel comfortable, offload their trauma. And if they want to go on record, only if, there's no pressure, yeah? Only if we start to gather statements and give it into the police. And I will be liaising with the authorities, using my position as a professional in the borough in previous and present roles. I will be using that to liaise with the authorities, because we're not having it. We're not having it. This is not a bad man thing. We're not sending gunman and all of this foolishness. Yeah, we're working and praying with the protection of the Most High, and we will use the powers that be available to us to ensure these things don't happen in our community again. And anyone that wants to defend, second guess it, talk about evidence when you can hear it all around you and the sisters are suffering, yeah, talk to me or shut up. Enough's enough. You either stand with us in this or you're against us and you're on the other side.
Feel the vibe.
I guess it did go viral.
On Legacy.
If you have a project.
Okay, guys. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. So we're just on a break. It's only like 1.5 minutes. So when we come back, I will do some more introductions, and then we can discuss what was talked about there. No contact from Afua yet?
Yeah, she said she's struggling to get in with her laptop, and she's going to try and get in on her phone, but the Wi-Fi is crappy.
Okay. I think obviously she's very clear on what was said there, don't you think? Enough to get the point across of the seriousness of the conversation that we want to have this evening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you all ready for this conversation?
Yep.
Yeah. I'll tell you straight. I've had a couple of calls with regard to how this conversation possibly needs to be had in a way, or concerns about the impact that such a conversation can have on people. And I'm sure the likes of Andy will be able to help us understand that at a deeper level.
Okay.
'Cause
Are you going to put out the, the support lines and stuff like that up front
Okay,
of the
so
conversation?
apparently we're not mute and people can hear us over the advert.
yeah, we are online. We are live online. When the adverts are on air, we are still live online.
Okay.
In fact, we're coming back now. Okay, so I'll speak to you in a minute.
No problem.
Legacy 95.1.
Yes, and welcome back. You're on tune to the search engine, and this is the first of the search engine meets concerned citizens group. And this evening, just as you heard before, that little extract from a few roles, I think clearly points out the situation that as to why concerned citizens group have taken this up. So let me start by, I don't know who wants to do that. And just explain to us, in a sense, who the Concerned Citizens Group is, and why these were touched so much. I know it may seem like a bit of a silly question, but why these were touched so much that you felt you needed to take this up, take up that baton from Afua as the campaign. Who wants to start with that?
Well, do you want me to? Okay, so good evening. I'm Charles Crichlow, and I am part of the Concerned Citizens Group. And we came together last year during the lockdown in response to a horrific murder, or double murder, of two brothers in our community. And we felt that there were things that we weren't talking about as a community, and therefore the group really was just a way of getting conversation going, particularly as we were in lockdown and we couldn't actually physically meet. Yeah. Now since then, as you say, a lot of things have happened, and one of the things that has happened is this viral video that you mentioned, and I think it really struck a chord with a number of individuals within the Concerned Citizens Group, many who are actually working on these issues, within the community. And I just really want to say up front, thank yourself, Anthony, and Legacy FM for having the courage to facilitate this conversation, because as you say, it's not an easy conversation to have. Yeah. And to thank Sonia and Sandy from Khan, because I know a lot of work has gone into to get into where we are, actually, because we're not just coming here, just to talk, actually. A lot of work's gone in to put things in place, actually, which you probably hear a bit more as we get into the conversation about this type of support that we want to make people aware of in the community. Because, I don't think there could be anything more serious than the protection of our young people, especially our young women in our community. And, I come to this as a parent, and as basically as a concerned person in our community. And so, I think it's a conversation that's long overdue, and I hope that this will be the beginning of a culture where we're not going to avoid having these. There are many difficult conversations that we need to have about many issues, but this is definitely one of them.
Excellent, thank you for that, Charles. Sandy, can I just come to you, and can I just ask you, in the sense of, like I said before I did this show, I did have a couple of calls with people concerned about how this message could possibly be put out, and maybe the impact that it couldn't have. Do you understand why people would have those kind of concerns about having this kind of conversation?
Yes, Anthony. Like Charles said, a lot of work has been put behind the scenes to make sure that we're ready for that, because we don't know what we're up to. It might be a dormant giant. But at Cannes, for example, we have counselors are ready to see anyone who needs help, really. But at the same time, we're working as well with other statutory organization and GMP to see what else, what other support can be we can have in place. But again, more details. I can't really give out all the details here, but just to reassure everybody that this is an issue of concern, and we're working behind the scenes to make sure that support is available.
Okay, just in the area of abuse, and we're looking at sexual abuse and grooming, and the kind of like long-term, short-term kind of like impact of that. Could you give us some kind of idea of what they are?
Well, I mean, I have to say, in my capacity as domestic violence and sexual abuse lead at Cannes, I come across victim abuse every week, really. At the moment, I have a few victims. Regardless of what type of abuse it is, domestic sexual violence, domestic abuse, it's not acceptable. And in our community, it might seem as something, it might not seem as relevant as, as we will think, but if it's happening with young girls, it stays with them for the whole life. I mean, I spoke with a lady some time ago. She was in her 50s and she was undergoing some kind of sexual violence, and it had been going on for over 10 years with the same person. It took her 10 years to wake up. And the damages sometimes are long-term damages. And if help is not around the corner, unfortunately, some of the victims, they're not really forthcoming in talking about, in expressing the help they need. So it's really for us, the community organizations like ours and other statutory organizations, to make sure that we have something in place to support these victims, because the damage, it's sometimes it's worse than what we can imagine.
And if there are somebody who's listening and they hear something in this discussion today that they could may want some advice, guidance on, can they contact Cannes? Is there any others off the top of your head that you can share with us there, what people can do?
Yes, of course. We have a helpline, and the number is already to you: 07710 022 382. So I'll read that again. So the helpline number is 07710 022 382. Please do ring us at any time, well, between 8 p.m. till 10 p.m. But if it's urgent, you can ring us anytime, really. We do speak with, sometimes people don't want to, I would say, make a complaint or something. They just want to talk. They just want someone to speak with. And that's what I do. I speak with a lot of victims just to give them that moral support. But in case they need further support, again, we have counselors from the community. We have Black counselors, because sometimes it's important to understand the cultural impact and issue behind this abuse. So having counselors from the community, from the Black community, is really important. So yeah, we do have counselors. Please also email us at help@cannes.org.uk.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you very much for that. Sonia, can I just ask you, in relation to the campaign and the fact of Manchester and the Concerned Citizens Group, CCG, taking up the campaign? There's the flyer that was put out to it, and there's a terminology that was used on that flyer, which was talk the things. Yeah. Can you just talk with me about I mean, I think I got it in my head, but the choice of wording of that.
It was initially thought the things taboo. And it was just about the fact that we don't speak about these kind of issues, like it's quite hidden and people don't feel comfortable discussing these kind of things. And we wanted although the language is coming from kind of like a Black perspective, we want people to understand really very clearly that this is not just a Black issue, that this happens globally, no matter what nationality, no matter what race you are. And for us, it's just us. We were saying, we as a Black community are going to deal with this problem that's happening in our community. We're going to not ignore this. This is something we're going to actually do and we're going to address. It's not just that it's a Black thing. It's just that we as a Black community are going to deal with ourselves. So,
but in the terminology, talk the things, yeah. When somebody says to you, talk the things,
yeah,
you're saying to them, don't be holding back, say what you're gonna say. So in a way, it was expressing the seriousness of this issue as a campaign and setting out the stance of CCG on this particular issue.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's also a bit of a little double entendre in there as well, because when I was growing up, people would say, "Oh, I'm going to get things from her," or do you know what I mean, and use it in that way. So yeah, we just thought it worked.
Okay, and just again with from, I feel hopefully we'll be back with this soon, but she talks a lot about the role of men in this and men in speaking out about this as an issue, and when in her tone and the words that she used, she's made it quite clear that she thinks that Black men are not stepping up and calling out other men where they may know could be predators of young women. Are you in agreement with this?
I am in agreement, but I think it's not just that men aren't calling out other men. I think women are just equally as complicit. Like, I know of men that carry on this way. I know of girls that have been exploited in this way, and I knew it was happening then. And there was just a sort of silence. So I think we're all responsible for and accountable for being complicit. I'm still not quite sure yet why we're so complicit. Like, I'm still working on me and thinking, why did I not speak out when that was happening and it was so obvious? And I don't know if it's just because it was just the norm. And so I felt like it was the norm. It wasn't that big a deal. It wasn't like these men were forcefully hurting and whipping and beating and leaving scars that you can see clearly, So, and a lot of my friends were quite happy having a big man of 27 rock up in his BMW to pick them up from the school gates. Do you know what I mean? So I don't know. I think we're all equally responsible.
And can this, and I'll put this out to everybody. How narrow can you kind of look at this from? Okay, we're here now, we're talking the things, we're talking about predatory behavior at one level from older males to younger girls. It's difficult to just categorize abuse as that, isn't it? As older men to younger girls, because you're thinking, what do you call younger girls? What are, in a sense, from your campaign, is your guidelines, or do you have guidelines to say we are talking about, like you said, 30, 40, 50-year-old men being predators towards, I don't know, 10, 13, 16?
I think it is it can be a blurred line, but if we just go on the basis of the law, okay, so underage girls that it's underage to have sex with, even if we just go based on that line. So a 15-year-old girl being chased down by a man, an adult, that's what I'm thinking of is not okay. And for me, a 15-year-old with a 27-year-old, that's clear. That's clearly not okay, because that's a big man looking at a young girl. Like if you've got a 15-year, I mean, as a mother now of and as an auntie of nieces, even if a 20-year-old came checking for my 15-year-old niece, even an 18-year-old was checking for my 15-year-old niece, that's not happening. Absolutely no way.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Can I bring Nick in? Nick, are you able to? He's gone again. All right. Yeah. So that's where do you, before we get a feedback and Nick, where's it important to start this conversation? What's the important things to start with?
If I can come in on just on the point before, Anthony, and then build on to where you want to go. Obviously, the age of consent in terms of the law is 16 years of age, if I have that correctly. But I think it's a problem when we start to look at this issue purely from a legalistic point of view. And I think we need to look at the issue in a broader moral context, if you like, yeah. Because when we start talking about ages, we're splitting hairs then, and we know what bad behavior looks like. I think what Sonia just said then about some of the things that that she's seen in the community, we know what it looks like, and I think the issue is about, let's start talking about it, yeah, and throwing the issues out in the open, yeah, and then we can get down into issues about age and various different elements, yeah. But we got to throw the issue out in the open. We know that there's a problem, and Sonia is absolutely correct actually when she said that it's not just about our community, something pathologizing Black people, yeah. This happens in all communities, but we've got to focus on what happens in our communities, because one of the problems, I think, Anthony, and this may not be a bad place to start, yeah, is the role of systemic racism historically, because one of the things, and I'm not making excuses here, is that one of the reasons why a lot of our people, they don't reach out to institutions, like the police, is historically our relationship with a lot of these institutions, and therefore that's caused us to to try to contain these issues within our community, and that's not sustainable. It hasn't been sustainable, and it's not sustainable going forward. So we've got to look at it in terms of from a cultural perspective, but also in terms of how do we tackle these systemic issues that prevent us from reaching out for institutional support.
Okay, that's definitely. Can I say, Afua, are you with us?
Oh, hi there. How are you?
Hi, Afua.
I'm having real connectivity problems at the moment. The internet here is not the greatest, and it's having one of its bad days, so bear with me.
Right, well, we can hear you clearly with the audio.
It's very, very choppy. I can hardly hear you.
We can hear it clearly.
Can you hear me very well?
Yeah.
Hi there.
Hiya.
Oops. Hiya.
Yeah, hi.
There.
We'll work with that for now, and then see. I'm sure we'll improve. Hiya, there you are. And Nick's gone. Doesn't matter. Hi, Afua. So, Afua, I played a clip of your video on the beginning of the show. I did edit it a little while, but it still set the scene for the campaign that you started, and that was taken up from concerned citizens groups down here. And just speaking with Charles about the whole culture within the community, something of this wall and this secrecy that seems to be embedded within our communities, not talking about this issue that is in all communities. It has to be in our communities. I remember speaking to Chief Omalade I think it was about probably 5 years ago, and she actually was talking about a similar thing with regard to children who were left behind in the Caribbean by their parents to come over to England, and what was happening to those children over there. Well, how then? Where do we start rooting this deep culture out, Afua?
You might have to repeat the question, because to me you sound a little bit like a Dalek at the moment, I'm afraid. So you might have to repeat the question. I'm so sorry.
Well, as you put it in your video, you said your mentor Khalid Mohammed says you got to root it out. Yeah, where do we start?
All right. So is the question? I'm really sorry. It's so choppy. You're cutting in and out. Is the question where do we start with rooting it out in our community in terms of the sexual abuse that's so prevalent? Yeah. Okay. Cool. Where do we start? I think the first place really for me is it has to start with the vanguard. It has to start with the protectors. It has to start with the women. That's where it starts. But it has to end up with the strong, righteous brothers in our community. That's where it has to end up. But it has to start with the women, because so many stories that I hear and listen to, so many women that I've theraped, even within my own personal stories, it is the women, it's the mothers actually protect many of these perpetrators. So I think it actually starts with women leaving their partners, giving up their partners, believing their daughters, believing their sons. It starts there. That's where it starts, I think. We have to break that wall of silence. You know, it's the victim blaming that goes on largely comes from women and is fueled. Then it enables men to be able to hide, if you like, and to stand on their wrongs. So I think it starts with the women.
Okay. Can I just again bring Sonia back in? Because I know you had. I mean, there's a few questions that we talked about in relation to this issue. I just wanted to know if there was anything specific that you wanted to put to Afua.
You might have to. Can you repeat that, please, brother?
Well, that was to Sonia actually.
I want to ask you to share the connection, because a lot of people might look at this and think this is a London Brixton thing, like why are we involved? But there is a connection. I wondered if Afua wanted to share the connection to Manchester.
The connection, my connection to Manchester. My connection to Manchester. Can you hear me? I'm not really hearing you very well.
Yeah.
Okay. My connection to Manchester goes back, way back. Back to the days of Gucci clothes and, you know, hanging around in Old Trafford and going to places like the Africa Centre and being in Chorlton. Those days, I don't know if anyone remembers that, the Africa Centre. Was it even a place, a thing? But it was for me.
African
I used to be in
Caribbean.
Manchester quite a lot.
Yeah.
So, used to be there quite a lot. And like I said, Gucci close gangs and that whole thing when it was Gunchester. So I'd come up from London. Also, I was connected to some brothers in Manchester within the Afrocentric movement. And between us and them and others, we smuggled Khalid Mohammed into the country when he was banned by the UK Home Office back in the 90s. So that was my big connection to Manchester. Manchester's always had a good place in my heart for those reasons.
I think I probably met you there. Wasn't it in Tottenham?
Sorry?
Was it in Tottenham where the Khalid was? I think probably you were there as well, Charles.
This connection, this African connection is terrible thing. Did you say, did he come to Tottenham?
Yeah, it's just a brief one linking to the
Dr. Khalid Mohammed came to Broadwater Farm Community Centre in Tottenham, spoke for 4 hours and got back on the plane and went straight back again before the authorities knew what had happened. In fact, they were following a decoy that looked like Dr. Khalid, and that decoy was headed towards Manchester with MI5 following them. Yeah, I don't know if I can still be arrested for that, but it is what it is.
So with this, Afua, on your YouTube, you talked about, not in a shriveled way, but you talked about backlash, whether people were talking to people who you worked with or concerns from your family. Fear is a big thing in this.
Can't hear you, my brother. I can't hear you at all.
Can you repeat what I'm saying? It might just be my my audio. Try yours, Sonia. You try and repeat what I said. Did you hear what I said? Okay.
Yeah, so Afua, he asked, have you had backlash from this? Because fear is a big thing.
No, I know she's had backlash because she mentioned on the video. I'm saying for the people in not speaking out or holding it down, whether that's adult or young person, whether that's somebody who's a victim or somebody who's even related to that victim, and not talking out many times because of fear.
I'm not getting any of that, my brother. It's so choppy.
Do you want to try that one?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Afua?
No.
Okay.
It's not any of us. Okay. Well, let me put that to both you and Sonia and Sandy, in that sense there around the fear, which I know Sonia, you talked about thinking it's the norm as well.
When Afua's video went viral and it was posted on the Concerned Citizens WhatsApp group.
Do you know what, Sonia, stop there because I've lost track of time. I just need to go to an advert. We're going to come back, talk about the fear.
I'm sorry, my brother. I'm going to have to try and rejoin. I think because of the time difference, the internet is always working, and right now it's kind of it's 1:45 in the morning, so it's not always the best time to use internet here where I am. So I'm gonna try and jump out and join again because I can't hear what you guys are saying.
All right.
You can hear me.
Yeah,
Give me a wave. No, can't hear anything.
Time to travel. Well, we'll be right back.
Feel the vibe on Legacy.
Greetings.
Yeah, well, hopefully, I feel we'll get back and then we can continue with that and go into that fear business. But yeah, it is. I mean, we're going to talk about the fear when we come back, but obviously it's a topic that needs to carry on and continue. And it's a thing of where do you start at, again, from protecting your children? Where does this conversation begin? I mean, we've only got a few minutes, but does anybody want to give a 30-second answer to that? Do you have children, Sonia?
I do. I think the conversation begins with your own children and letting them know what's okay and what's not. What's acceptable, what's unacceptable.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think having that conversation with children from a young age is very important, really. I mean, well, depending on the age, you choose what you say, but
yeah, definitely. And but and again, you don't know, I suppose, how to be a parent until you become a parent.
Yeah.
Do you? Yeah. So it is where that cycle comes in, and you realize, well, my mum or my father weren't having these conversations with me, so therefore I need to have this. I'm going to have it. Because a lot of the time the talk doesn't take place not because the child is uncomfortable with it, it's because the adult is uncomfortable with having the conversation. And you'll be so surprised when you have the conversation appropriately, how the child just accepts it.
Yeah.
We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back. You're on tune to the Search Engine, and this is Search Engine Meets Concerned Citizens Group. First of hopefully a few shows to go where we will be doing quite a few topics brought forward by the Concerned Citizens Group. And just before we went to the break, I put a question to Sonia with regard to the question of fear. We're still trying to get an appropriate link with Afua, and as soon as we do, we'll be able to ask her a few more questions. You can get in touch on the text line 075 99642626. You can give us a call 016-1222-5636, and also join us on YouTube or Facebook Legacy 90.1, YouTube SEUK Global. I will read those texts in a little while. But Sonia, can I come back to you with regard to the question that I asked about fear, and hopefully, I mean, if you give your answer, if Afua can hear us a bit better, maybe she can also talk to it as well.
I got people contacted me privately on WhatsApp that I didn't know to tell me like their experiences and to say that they were really concerned about this and that it wasn't okay. And the general gist was that people were afraid of the bigger thing happening. So there's people in our community that are well respected men that are our brothers, our dads, our uncles, and I think people are afraid of the damage that this can do to not just to the families of these men and to the community, that and they're afraid that people aren't ready for that. They're afraid that the backlash might come to them if they're naming respected people that we all love and admire, and I think they're just afraid of creating that snowball that could come from this, as well as people then knowing that it was them that maybe said something and being blamed and not believed, and maybe being accused of just being vicious for other reasons.
Yeah. Afua, is that any better? No, you're jumping in and out. It's Nick and Afua having issues this evening. But yeah, again, it's new, isn't it? Again, that fear thing, it's new. And this is the thing with again, understanding the depths and scale of this, Sandy Charles, you know, and it's, I know we're talking perpetrator from older, but again, it's about, if you're older, you started somewhere, didn't you?
Yeah.
Did they start when the young?
Yeah, I think on that question about fear is that it's like dealing with fear in any context. The less that you talk about it and the less that you confront it, the greater the problem becomes. Yeah, and so that says to me that having conversations like this and encouraging conversations in the family, and it just encouraging conversation full stop. Yeah, it's not actually a bad place to begin to look at this. I know it's kind of a throwaway thing where we say, you know, we've got to start having conversation, but actually it's much more fundamental than that. And so so that's why I think this conversation is very important. But also, I think how we come to these conversations is important. And I think for me, I come to this conversation in a sense of, well, let's not start pointing the finger around. Let's start looking at ourselves first, yeah? Just as a general principle in terms of how we interact with people in the community, full stop, yeah? Because I think it's one thing about the abuse of young women, yeah? And, you know, I talked about the legal age of consent and things like that, yeah? But, you know, there's an issue about the abuse of Black women, full stop, actually. And so I think all of us, I think, you know, need to arrive at the conversation by looking at ourselves first of all, yeah. You know, and that's my perspective on that issue about fear. Actually, you know, is that we must confront our fears about these conversations. When we first had a discussion about this, you know, and you know, Afua had some very sharp things to say about Black men and stuff like that. And that was that caused me to reflect deeply, actually, and to question myself, actually, you know, even about myself. And I don't think that that's a bad thing, to be honest with you. That we're confronted in a very difficult way, actually, because that's how we get to the issues that exist, you know, within ourselves and within the community. And so, so I think, in summary of all of that, yeah, it begins with self.
Thanks for that. Thanks for that. Sandy, I don't know, do you want to add anything?
Yeah, sure. In addition to what Charles has just said, and Sonia as well, I think talking about fear, something that's really important to take into account is the cultural aspect of things. Because it's important, if you want to support a victim, it's important to understand, especially if the victim has not come forward for such a long time, or if the victim has been silent for such a long time. It's important to understand the reasons why. I deal with a lot of domestic violence victims, and that is a massive thing. And in our Black community, unfortunately, one of the reason will be, you know, the cultural background, depending on where the person is from, if the person is originally from Africa, or depending on the community. If you come from a community where, let's say, there's someone, there's someone with a position of power in the community, we have that fear in general as group. If someone who is in a position of power, let's say a man is in a position of power, is abusing a young girl or a young woman, how much chances do you think this young lady will come forward and speak without the community lashing at them? Again, when you take into account the cultural background in terms of, you know, culture as to speak, some people will not just mention things like that because culturally, you know, the group will just gather against them. And very soon, before you know, you're an outcast, and you know, and it just goes downhill from there.
But there's things in culture. Can things get excused as culture? Sandy,
you say?
Can people excuse things and put it down to, oh, that's culture?
Well, I think it's a bit of both. And why? Because yes, some people would use the culture as an excuse. I have some ladies from Africa, for example, who are being abused or who have been abused. But just because from the culture, the man is allowed to do that, whatever he's doing. Now, whether it's right or wrong, it's something else. But in the eyes of everybody, it will be wrong. But the culture just allows. Fortunately, things like this are still happening. Yeah, so sometimes the culture allows it. Sometimes it's just using the culture as an excuse, really. And now when you speak of fear, how many of these ladies, especially if they're very depending on these men, or if if there is a need. Sonia mentioned earlier. Yeah, can you hear me? Because I feel like it's breaking as well.
Yeah, you are breaking up a bit. We just missed that last point that you make. If you just make that again, please.
I'm not too sure. I was just saying, Sonia mentioned at the beginning that sometimes we're all part of the problem, you know, ladies and men. But I mean, sometimes we're all part of the problem, because depending on how the lady found herself in that position, if you're in a, unfortunately, some men will use their position of power to abuse if the lady is in need. But yeah, it's tricky. Let's just put it that way.
Okay, just let me just take a couple of these texts that's come in here and get your views on them. Let's have a look. Some of these I can't read out in full because some of it are just saying things that have happened to them. So 273, I'm sorry to hear that. And yes, I mean, I have online, there are some services of support that is scrolling across the screen that you can see. For example, like we've got a number from Khan before, which was 0771 002 2382, and you can give that a call if you want to speak to somebody. They are also, is it Women's Aid is another one. NAPAC is another organization. There are quite a few. Okay, let me take this next one. It says, wish I could get somebody saying that they wish could talk to some of you on this line. Here you go. There is a responsibility within families, extended families, and across the board for this to be addressed without fear of being ostracized. Mothers must also be held accountable, especially the older generation of mothers. It's in every nationality and culture, because children were meant to be seen and not heard. Is that fair?
I think that's a fair opinion, that's the way I was raised, that children will be seen and not heard. I think that's an
I agree with that, but is it older generations to blame?
No, it can't be. I mean, I'm not in the older generation, not yet, I'd like to think, but I've been complicit. I don't know if that's been passed down to me from older generations, but no, we can't.
How would you say you've been complicit?
In knowing that this has gone on and not speaking out and not saying to people, oh, this isn't okay, or and just telling people and just talking about it more. And I know with our friends we might have talked about age gaps, but it was just kind of chat. We never took it any further. And as an adult, I've never gone back and addressed some of these things that I've seen going on or that I'm aware of. You know, I still have up till maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I was still having good conversations and civil conversations with men that I knew took absolute advantage of girls that were underage. And I just carried on talking to them like with the same kind of respect and the same kind of admiration that I had for them for the good things that they do in the community. So I think with that, I'm complicit with that, you know.
I think the point that's a good point, but I think the point Sandy made about culture it is an interesting point. But I think culture has many different faces, and I think the way to counteract any of those negative elements that people might try to use as an excuse is I think the answers are within the culture as well, because things like, for example, it takes a village to raise a child. Yeah, that's in our culture, and I think if we can tap into that aspect of the culture, in terms of like the work that people like Khan and many others are doing, yeah. And as individuals, it takes a village to raise a child. If we can really make that real within our community, then I think that you will see, because that philosophy allows us to recognize that actually our neighbor's problem is our problem, you know, and that what's happening, you know, in the community elsewhere, that we've got a responsibility, and that we mustn't get into this way of thinking that actually it's not my problem, you know, it's somebody else's problem. So I think sometimes the problem can emerge within the culture, but also I think the solutions can come from within the culture.
Okay, thanks a lot for that, Charles. Can I just think in the sense of, like I said, this topic, and we're getting this message out, whether that's to whoever, whether it's from men, women, mothers, daughters, children. And as I said before, views and opinions expressed this evening are not necessarily views and opinion of Legacy Radio, but we're not here to offend, we're not here to upset. We're here to just have this conversation in a civil way. It's very important, and these situations become obviously much more important to people when it's very close at hand. Like if it takes place to your child or your cousin, people tend to look at it in a much more different way. But from just from anybody's perspective, what then, from what we're learning, or what we know, or what we've denied, message do we give out there to say, if this is taking place now with you, then it's abuse, it's grooming, it's not right, something needs to be done? Can give us a few examples of that, or situations where something's happening? Obviously, even from a professional perspective, if a teacher sees somebody who they know is not somebody's father, picking them up from school, they've never seen them before, then, you know, safeguarding alarm bells should ring.
I think from an adult's point of view, from just somebody in the community, now, if I was to see, or I was to become aware of that was happening with somebody I know, I'll go and approach them myself and say, hang on, do you know how old she is? And just let the perpetrator know, we're watching you and we're looking at you and we're letting you know that we're seeing this and that this is not okay and that we're not accepting this. And I think that's what's been missing, that we've been afraid to say, hang on a minute, what are you doing? That's not okay. I think we've been afraid to challenge these people and say to them things like that. And I think that's where men in this situation, where we're going to get our strength from, because I think men need to have these conversations with their brothers and their friends, and, you know, and be more vocal. Oh, no, man, that's not okay. You know, I think that's where we need to start.
Yeah,
yeah. Can I try and elaborate real quick? So sorry, my audio is really bad. I'm struggling at the moment to connect with you.
Well, we'll try with you. Go ahead.
In regards to men having the conversation, we do. I'm 36, and we do have these conversations all the time. I've had these conversations with the likes of Sonia Charles, who are on the show, in the group, and personally, you just unfortunately, like you said, have these cultural depictions. I don't know if it's been said before, but you know, in America and Jamaica and Barbados, etc., you don't have a benefit system. So it's within them cultures or our cultures for at home for people to be allowed to do certain things. That then trickles into respect, connotations of people not really wanting to call out, you know, people knowing that someone's done something, but unfortunately, you know, it's of one of their friends, loved ones, or in their social group, or an association to them. So, you know, they might be looked upon like, well, you're his friend, so have you been there when he's doing it? Did you know? When the reality of it is I'd say 90% of the people in Manchester or in the UK or in the world know somebody that's done or heard something. The question is, have you then gone and done something about it? And as Charles has said before, within our culture and within all cultures, but I will say, unfortunately, especially in ours, within the last few decades, it's none of our business. You know, you sticking your head in places where you're not welcome. You know, you could get backlash, as Afua did, for example.
Nick, how for you, do we start getting this message strongly to men who are not fathers yet, to men who are fathers, and to young boys, and let's start with the boys, because we need to also obviously be arming the young girls as well. But for men to actually get a genuine, sincere understanding as to why this needs to stop, and to understand the long-term impact.
I think for me, we've made a start by declaring this evening that, you know, that this is a conversation that it says part one, that we're going to have going forward. But I think from my perspective as a man, as an older person, is that I think we have to be prepared, and I'm saying this to all the men out there, is that we have to be prepared to listen. And by listening, I mean, we have to almost go out of our way, to put ourselves in places where we can hear people's testimony about this, we've got to step out and seek out places where we can have the conversation. Because for anybody that thinks that it's not, and Afua said it, you know, when she said it's real, it's real, it's a real thing, and she gave graphic examples, you know, historically, and you know, and what's going on now. I think sometimes we're in the comfort of our homes. It's easy to shut ourselves off and to believe that, you know, all is well with the world. But I think for me, you know, going forward, and that's part of the reason why I was a little bit uncomfortable about even coming on this show. But speaking to Afua and others, I remember Jackie said in the room, and she does a lot of work around domestic violence, that, you know, that they got, you know, you as guys, you have to go forward, and I'm hearing that message, and that kind of convinced me that, you know, that we can't just say, well, this is a women's issue, you know, that we've got a responsibility to be a big part of the conversation, but not to dominate the conversation, to open our ears and listen, and speak out.
Doesn't it actually say something, not necessarily of you specifically, Charles, but even the uncomfortability, unwillingness, nervousness of having this conversation, yet, if I go back historically on this particular station and probably many others, how many conversations we've had about knife crime, gun crime, people being killed, people being murdered. So that probably tells you the understanding and the gravity that this is possibly. Okay, I can't say and qualify it's worse than somebody losing their life, yeah. But for it to have the lack of take up, the lack of coming together on this issue, there's an unconscious recognition of the damage that's actually caused when young girls are exploited in that way.
Yeah, I think you know, when we talk about men, yeah, and abusers and things like that, yeah, and rightly so, we're talking about somebody's uncle, you know, somebody's grandfather or somebody's father, somebody's brother, and I think that creates, you know, those uncomfortable situations, yeah, because, you know, on the flip side of things, you know, often there's and again, this is not me making excuses, you know, people say, well, you know, guys have been accused of things that they haven't done and things of that nature. I think all of that creeps into the conversation, and I think makes it difficult, even more difficult to have, yeah. But I'm convinced, you know, listening to you know, Sonia and Sandy and others and all the women in the group, especially those you know, that are working with you know, in the sort of Black youth worker sort of realm, yeah. And when I hear testimony from them about some of the stuff that, you know, that they pick up, you know, a lot of the traumas, you know, that's convinced me that, you know, that I have a part to play, you know, as a member of our community, you know, so that's where I come at it, yeah. Not as I'm not an expert in anything. I'm just a parent, you know, a person who I love my community. I think our culture is a beautiful thing, yeah. But undoubtedly, when there's issues in our community, we have to confront them as a mature community.
Thank you for that, Charles. We did have a call, but they dropped out. You can try again, call, and we'll try and get you involved.
Can I just make a point?
Yes.
I think this isn't a really clear cut.
Hold on, Sonia. I keep doing this for you. So you don't know it's time for me to go for a break. So hold that thought. Don't go away. We'll come right back. Right back to you. Okay. In a bit.
Feel the vibe on Legacy.
Just don't forget that. I don't want you to talk it out on air. But yeah, I mean, okay, let's just take this call. Getting this all going now. Hello. Oh yeah, just hold on there, and yeah, just wait because I'm online. I'll just put you on hold a minute, okay, and then I'll bring you in after the break. Okay, so you've got a call there. Somebody wants to ask you some questions. So we'll get on that when we come back. Yeah, I mean, it's great. And I think the topic obviously needs to continue. As we said before, hopefully this is something that we're going to be doing a few occasions. Was you saying something there, Nick? No. And obviously we'll try and get a safe link with a FUA again. And
sorry, I don't know why my laptop's struggling so much.
It's all right. It's probably we'll get you next time, if not this time. So Sandy, again, just quickly while we've got literally 30 seconds, so I'm not going to start going there now. But you can think about it. Let me give it to you, because when I was looking, because I put up some names of some contacts for some services where people can contact if they want some help and advice. But I did struggle to find black specific services for black women to go to for support. I struggled with that. Kept coming up with black country women somewhere, I think, based in Birmingham.
Yeah, there is an organization I'm working with. I can mention.
Sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, there is an organization I'm working with. I can mention that when you come to me with that. It's a black organization really helping ladies with that.
Go on. Do you want to just mention that now? Because we're back now.
Yeah, it's an olive pathway. So olive.
Sorry, you broke up then.
Yeah, so it's olive pathway. Olive and then path.
Okay. Where are they based?
They're based in Wythenshawe, but they operate in Greater Manchester. But they do an amazing work because I've referred a few people over there, and it's great.
Okay. Just 1 minute. Hello, caller, are you with us?
Hello, yeah.
Hi, Joe. Just hold on a minute, please. Just going to get a point from Sonia because I cut her off just before the break.
Okay.
She'll start thinking I'm doing it on purpose. Let's get her back. Hi, Sonia.
I was just going to say, I was working with a woman in Birmingham today and was telling her about the topic of the show. And she said, so she was, she had sexual relationships with an older man when she was still in school, and she doesn't class it as abuse. She said it was a good relationship. The man was good to her. He was good to her family. And so I think, I wonder, do people even think that this is wrong? Like, is there a genuine uncertainty about whether this is right or wrong? Because is that a thing? So if the man's treating you well and he's taking care of you and he's taking care of your family, and do you know what I mean? And here are these women that are now women thinking, he looked after me, like, what's the problem? So I wonder if that's an issue.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Definitely. Let me just put that to the caller. Joe.
Mm-hmm.
I know you've probably got your point that you wanted to make, but let me just put that question to you that Sonia just put, in the sense of, if you've got a younger person having a relationship with an older man and they're viewing it all right and the parents are all right with it, then is it okay?
No, it's not okay.
Why?
It's not at all. It's just unfortunate that when you started the program, I find that there should have been a distinction between children, young women, and domestic abuse. They're not the category. There should be a different category for each, because when you're talking about children, it can start from very, very young. A child going on to older children. I've worked with children, young people, and older people. It can start very, very young. So there needs to have been a distinction made, because children need to be protected. If a child is growing up and they find that nobody's there to protect them, what are they going to do? You know, for the turmoil that they will be in will be horrendous. And I'm talking from 2 years up, because this thing about abuse, it's out there. It's in the media. It's been going on for years, many, many years. And
in the sense of the categorization, Joe, we were coming from the point of view that we were talking about elderly males. I know from Alfia's point of view, her reasons for starting and going on YouTube was in regard to.
Oh, yes, I understand that.
Okay.
But I'm not talking from that point. I'm sort of saying, after you've mentioned abuse, I'm more thinking about children and young girls, where you say girls, but I don't know whether some people call girls right up to 20 odd. You know what I'm saying? Or girls 16, 17, 18. And what I'm talking about is, once you touch on abuse, you first got to look at children, because that's where it tends to happen, going right up, and it continues from what I've been able to find out about. So, and it's not just we say girls, but it's both. It's girls and boys. And because it's out there, you would assume that many people know what it is. What I can say is parents need to bring children up in a way that encourage them, in case of anything, come to me. Although I've heard of instances where people have gone to the parents and the parents have ignored it. Are you with me, Anthony?
Yeah, definitely.
They would tell me if I'm talking, if I'm talking okay. Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Definitely.
Right. I'm not saying some parents, they don't know any better, but if you start a child off in school, this thing has been going on now. And when you think of the people, the so-called personalities out there, Rolf Harris, they all work with where children and young people, and children and boys and girls are. When I say children, young boys and girls are in school or wherever, I think of Gary Glitter and all these people who have abused children. But it can be closer to home as well. So,
what about how do you feel in the sense of this as a conversation?
I think it should be in a few parts.
Being avoided as for you. You know, you're an elder, Joe. For you, is this a conversation that has been avoided in our community?
Yes, in our community, yes. But you've done it. It's been here. It's here now. You've brought it on tonight. It surprised me because I didn't expect to. It wasn't advertised. I didn't hear that.
But why does it surprise you?
Oh no, it doesn't surprise. It's surprising to me that people are speaking, because when you started, you didn't. It's like you were shying away from it. You didn't come out with what the program is about. Instead of using the correct words, you didn't say child abuse or the abuse of children in schools or whatever. I wasn't getting that.
Okay.
So, you know, we need to be clear, because this thing is not correct. It can't be right. And people go on to suffer right through their lives.
What words?
I used to counsel, remember. It's not a simple thing. It's not an easy thing. But we cannot just stay there and hide it, because children, if a child's being bullied, we have to do something, right? You can't let people suffer abuse like that, especially children, because they grow into adults and it doesn't go away. They grow into adults, it doesn't go away. So what I'm trying to go on, you were going to say something. I don't know what you were going to say.
Oh, I was going to just ask you in the sense of, you know, we had a title called Talk the Things, yeah. And there's somebody from the Caribbean. When you hear that, talk the things, what does that resonate for you?
I heard it tonight. I've never heard that, before.
Nobody's ever told you to talk the things?
No, I've never heard anybody talk about things. This thing, by the way, of abuse, it was brought onto your radio station. I think it was JoJo, this woman called JoJo. They had mentioned about adult men going to schools and things like that. They started off talking about that and saying they were speaking it out about what was going on to young girls and things like this. So it has been out there, but like it's been out there for many years now. We hear about abuse in institutions. It's just about everywhere. And years ago, it used to be somebody that they put, like you say, a priest or a minister or the SEUK where children are. The nursery, somebody in the nursery or wherever children are. There could be anybody, teachers, there could be anybody. So what I'm saying, this thing was out there a long time. It's not new to many people. So we don't have to hide away, because the thing is, if a child comes to the parent, in my opinion, I think the parent should do something about it. You can't. What's going to happen? How can children have confidence and grow up in confidence when these things are happening to them?
I think that's the issue, Joe. Is building that confidence in the child. But if the parent doesn't have confident, or they're, you know, like you said, it is categories, because there could be domestic violence going on, which leads on to one thing and on to the other.
Yeah,
so
but
sometimes it's not as
yeah.
as cut and dry as we would like
No,
to.
I'm not
think
saying
it
it's a
is.
very difficult situation for exactly the reasons. You did speak about that. I heard what some people were saying.
Yeah. Joe,
But
do you have
what
any
I'm-
questions for any of our speakers that are here?
Well, I understand what's he called again? The head of the police association.
Charles.
Charles. I heard what Charles is saying, but like I said, it's a worldwide thing. It's not just it's not something many people tackle it, but in the black community, I don't know why we're all the same quiet about it, because if it was something, if it's out there, right, and it's an underhanded thing, it's done in secret, it's done in a kind of a way that a parent can't find out, isn't it? It's not nothing. It's the way it happens. But I find domestic violence is domestic violence. But if you make a decision and you're going to have children need protecting from many things, and that's one of the main ones, because what it does to them as adults as well, and it can go on for years. And nobody has not a hint of evidence. I think sometimes parents have an idea, very occasionally, or whatever. But people are so afraid. What I'm trying to say is, because it's all out there now, happening in every society on earth. So we have to play our part as well to help children. You can't expect them to just go to school and come back. You don't know what's disturbing them.
Exactly.
Joe? Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Thank
Bye-bye.
you for calling. See you later. Take care.
Bye.
Some points there, guys. Any comments? Hold on, let me unmute you. I had to mute you because there were some noises coming. Yeah. Sorry. Sorry. Any comments on Joe's comments?
Yeah, can I just come in there, Anthony? Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with. I agree with the lady. It's important to protect our children, safeguarding and all that. It's really important, and as a community, I think that is the group we need to look after. And at first, but we can't really talk about this issue without. Without talking about either domestic violence or abuse on, on older girls, whether they are 15 or 16 or whether the child is younger than that. And I guess maybe the best way forward, especially in our communities, to talk about it with our children. I had a case, a lady who came to me saying that her daughter, who at the time was 10 years old, came across a message. So she downloaded a website, and then there was a message, from a dating website, someone asking what she made contact. Anyway, she clicked on it, went on the website. Somehow she was curious at that time. It was an older man, suggesting, telling her that he could give her nice things, and giving her there was a shopping center close to where this family lived, and they had the conversation, the young girl and the man, and the man was trying to lure the girl to meet in that shopping mall, which was like 10 minutes away from home. But I think hopefully what saved that family was the openness and the conversation she used to have with her daughter. She always told her daughter, regardless of who you speak with, whoever it is, do not ever engage in it. The young girl didn't speak about the initial conversation, but she did come to her mum eventually and say, "Oh, I met this man online, and he's asking to meet me at the shopping mall." And it just raised an eyebrow, really. And when she investigated further, and she had the police involved as well, it was actually an older man, and it went further. But that was great, because if that girl went out, the young girl, 10 years old, she went out that day, who knows what would have happened. So talking with the children is really, really important. It's important for us as a community to have that platform where we can start the conversation. And I don't know if I can maybe go further from this question and maybe bring in something else. I remember Sir Charles mentioned earlier that we have a trust issue with the police. It's important to let people know that help is available, because unfortunately, yeah, we've had a history of mistrust with the local authority, with the police. So people don't really know which help is available. People don't know what to do, where to go. And I think if we're talking about this topic, it's really good to focus on where help can be available. At CAN, we work with other statutory organizations, and even with with GMP, Greater Manchester Police, we've started this conversation. We know there's a history of mistrust. We know that some victims will not come forward easily. But going forward, what do we want to do about this? So starting a conversation like this is really important, because it's showing our people, it's showing people that there is a way forward. Don't suffer in silence. Because if people in your group, in your community, do not want to speak about it, there are other places where, other organizations happy to listen to you, happy to help you all the way. Whether it's related to immigration issues, housing issues, help is available, and people need to know that. Thanks, Anthony.
No, you're welcome. And let me, because it is, like I said, it's a learning thing, and it's learning on each level. I said before, you don't know you're a parent till you're a parent. And then the other thing, because it was an interesting conversation that I had with regard to affection, yeah. Because this was another issue, and maybe I might be generalizing, but sometimes you find out in the African Caribbean community, maybe especially generations gone by, the affection wasn't really there, in the sense of how they hugging and that. I don't know, you can tell me that I'm wrong here, and that you were very, very loved up, but I could say for most, I know that was uncomfortable for my dad to hug, it was uncomfortable for my mum. We introduced them to that kind of affection. But it's very different when you have your own children and how they show you affection. And if you don't know and you can't differentiate that this is, your child, and your child is showing you affection because you are the everything to them, yeah, and you misinterpret that affection from your child in a sexual way, then these are as where some of the initial issues, and I might be crossing the line, but I know it happens. I've read it happening. I know this is the case on many occasions, that this is where the kind of conversation, as difficult as it is for me, needs to be touching. Starts right at home. How do you like, I know I work with children for a long time. There's ways in which social workers and people are trained to give affection, to hug children, so not to give mixed messages, especially, if children have already been touched in some way by abuse. What's your thoughts on that?
I think that's something very different. I think we're talking about incest and abuse from a family member, which I think is a different topic. Although there's similarities, I think it's a very different topic, and that's going somewhere else that is deep and awful. I wanted to bring it back to a comment that the lady caller made, and she was saying, Joe, that we needed to differentiate between very young children and young girls. And I want to ask people, what do you class as a child? Because for me, as a mother now, I'm classing my child until he hits 18 a child, and even then, sometimes when you're over 18. You still aren't an adult. So I'm wondering, is there a difference? Like, does it make it better or more acceptable if a man abuses a 10-year-old or if a man abuses a 16-year-old child? Like, does that mean it's less severe, or it's less impactful, or it's any better, or, you know, we should allow it a bit more. And I wonder if that's where the hidden and the secrets and the not being spoken about comes into, because maybe there's an issue around who is a child. Because when my father will tell me that he didn't have a childhood, that from when he was 6, he was walking, fetching water, going to, you know, do work, and, you know, from a very early age. And so will my grandma. She'll tell you she didn't have a childhood. She was working from when she could, you know, carry things. So I wonder if there's the blur and the confusion about whether this is okay or not comes from the fact that we haven't yet made really clear who a child is. Because if a man is going to check for a 15-year-old woman, looking like a woman, with a womanly shape, acting like a woman, is there some sort of confusion or a blurred line that maybe that's why that's okay? And is that why maybe we're complicit, because we're not looking at this like a little child playing with marbles or Lego? You know, maybe that's my question. Is it clear? Are people clear about what a child is? Because I know I'm clear for me.
Hold on, Charles. Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, just allied to what Sonia just said then, it's a good point. And Sandy, I think the law is very, very clear that there is no such thing as sexual relations with a girl under 16 years old. Yeah, it's rape. It's as simple as that. And I think the conversation does get blurred, and this is where language becomes important. Yeah, because language is interesting, because when we start talking about, you know, checking for a 15-year-old, we're getting into rape. Yeah, it's you know, and I think that, you know, the clarity that that Joy, the caller, brought to the conversation on that note actually was important actually, and it was a good call actually. I think you know, just allied to the point also that you made about incest and that being a separate issue. I get that, but I think also sometimes, quite often, I think, certainly as a practitioner in my previous career, these types of abusers are often people that are very trusted by family members, and are often people that have trusted in the community, or quite often actually. You know, these are not, I think we've got to destroy this myth that these types of abusers are people, you know, the type of stranger that runs around in, you know, dirty anoraks and things like that. Yeah, no, quite often these are people that you and I, you know, unfortunately will encounter. You know, maybe sometimes people that we know. Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it, because sometimes when we talk about abusers and stuff like that, and it's people that we don't know. Yeah. We're very clear about it, yeah, very clear-eyed about it. But as soon as the closer it gets to you, yeah, that's when it gets a bit fuzzy. We start to think, and I think that feeling, that's what we need to get at, yeah, that, you know, that there's a line to be drawn, that abuse is abuse, rape is rape, no matter, you know, no matter who the person is, yeah. I think, and I think when Joy talked about the extent to which, you know, and both Sonia and Sandy spoke about this as well, about the impact that this type of abuse, yeah, has on people throughout their whole entire lives, yeah, and how this destroys people, yeah, and how suicide and things like that comes into this, yeah. And all other forms of abuse, yeah. I think when we start to bring that into the conversation, I think that's when we begin to sensitize people and make people understand, you know, just how serious this is, yeah. And I was reflecting on the call that you know that Sonia had with the person from Birmingham, and sometimes, sometimes people who are damaged may not actually realize that they're damaged. I'm not an expert, but maybe, I don't know, Sandy might comment on that, yeah? But I think that's something to put into the equation as well. Often, sometimes people think they're okay, but actually they're not okay.
Okay, thanks. Do you want to add to that, Sandy?
Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Yeah, Charles, I think you're absolutely right in saying that sometimes people, when they've gone through that type of abuse for so long, they don't realize how much damage they have incurred, really. Because, again, I can speak of so many experiences with people I meet every day or I speak with every day. I initially mentioned the lady I spoke with. She's been, well, it's probably not child abuse, but abuse in a way. It's been going on for so long. And when she was speaking with me, she was looking for help, but she just didn't know. She just didn't have the strength to come out of it because she was still living with the abuser. Because when, again, you abuse, sometimes it's someone very close to you. Might be a family member, it might be a partner, it might be someone in the community, it might be your pastor. There are people like that. But yeah, this is where, again, I will possibly talk more available, because when you speak with people like that, they don't even think they need help. They don't even think anything, anyone can do anything for them. And that's the saddest bit, because you've gone through that for so long. So imagine a young lady who's been abused for so many years. She doesn't trust herself anymore. She doesn't believe in herself. She doesn't even believe that the society can help her. And this is where we're failing them, because if they don't believe help is available, then think of them in 10 years, 20 years. What will they be able to teach a child if they have a child tomorrow? If they have a daughter tomorrow, what would they be able to say? It might carry on. So, yeah.
Thank you. And we'll be right back.
Feel the vibe on Legacy.
Greetings. This is
Right, guys, thanks for that. When we come back, we're literally going to have virtually 10 minutes to go before we've got to go. Time's actually totally flown. So just we've got like a minute before we've got to come back. So in the sense of just moving forward with this campaign and this topic, what are the plans? What's the next steps?
I think this radio show was to see, do we need to do something? Is this a big issue? Do we need to address it? So we want to hear from the community to know, is this an issue, and should we move forward with it?
Right, I definitely believe it's an issue. I've got quite a few texts in here. Some, like I said, I can't read out, but I've had quite a lot that have come in, more comments rather than questions. Obviously, we've had the call from Joe, and I'm sure you'll see the response that we'll have from the YouTube page in the sense of engagements and people. So, but even that, I think you know the answer to that, Sonia. It needs to happen, and like for me, not necessarily just at this time. I mean, it's about how you have the conversation. This show's usually 9 till 11. We're coming back, but there's other shows that take part in the day. I always recommend. Miss Diva's show on a Monday 7 to have a discussion and talk, and also Chinya's discussion show on a Wednesday, which has very good engagement to have this conversation. So I definitely believe it should go on, and I hope that we will do. I know we want to do other topics, but follow up.
I think we need to lobby for proper investment in the type of services that define our reality. I mean, look at Khan, for example. Yeah, just by just one example. Were it not for Khan, and they established probably about 2 years before COVID struck. Yeah, can you imagine if we didn't have an organization like Khan during this pandemic? Yeah. And for me, that they're an example of why we need institutions within our community that actually understand and that can respond to our needs specifically. And that's where we need the investment in institutions that can carry forward issues like the one that we're talking about tonight. Yeah, in many different ways. For all the reasons that were mentioned already, in terms of trust and confidence in some of the sort of mainstream institutions. So Khan have been that bridge actually between the community and the complexity within, like the NHS and GMP and others. And that needs to filter down into specific issues like this one, actually, in my view.
Okay, thank you for that, Charles. And just on that message that we got in there, that kind of like went very much into what you were saying, Sonia, with regard to age and things. And Charles confirmed about the age. But it is still a kind of an area that you got to think, because just like it says there, you might have somebody who's 16, but they're not a mature 16. They may be vulnerable, so therefore that does come into it from a legal perspective as well, does it not, Charles?
Well, okay, let me put it this way. Yeah, I have two daughters. One is 18 and one is 21. Yeah, and I respect them as young women, yeah. But I cannot conceive of a situation where I would tolerate, individuals, forming inappropriate, unhealthy relationships with them, yeah. That's something that that would be problematic, yeah. And they're not. They said they're not underage, yeah?
That's a good word, isn't it? That would be... I like
that mildly.
That would be problematic. I'm just saying that because I know what I'm like, you know what I mean? I've got two daughters, and they know what I'm like too.
There might be some issues.
Yeah, definitely.
But I on that note, yeah, I've had conversations with my girls, over as they've been growing up, and spoke to them about what's, about the reality of men sometimes, yeah, and what's out there, yeah, and I haven't hidden anything from them, I've allowed them to grow, but I've been, and I think that I hope that that's worked, and from what I can see, I feel that it has done, yeah. And I think that's part of it, is about us having conversations with our daughters.
And is that again another area? Is that something that you had to teach yourself? Was you taught that by your parents? Were you shown examples of that?
Well, to be perfectly honest, I grew up with my grandparents. So I grew up in the Caribbean, so I had a different form of discipline, let's put it that way, yeah. And I saw how my grandparents, how they disciplined even my sister and the young women in our family, and they were very, very strict. That they were extreme in the others, on the other end of the spectrum. In terms of my sister or my aunties even talking to men, But yeah.
Do you know what, guys? I think it's not just about educating our girls as well. I've got 2 boys, and when my son started hitting the age where he was dating girls, I already started planting seeds for him, saying, "Oh, do you know, there's people that were on the paedophile list because when they were 18, they were with a girl, and she was, 17 and that's going to stay with that man for the rest of his life." And I was already planting seeds to my son, but you need to be careful and you need to watch out. And my son will tell you that I'll say to him, did you check Did you check a passport? How do you know how old she is? Did she prove it? Can she prove it? Has she proved it? Do you know what I mean? Because now he's past 18, and it's just been a constant theme. And I think a worry for me, because I know when I was 15, I did not look 15. I was going to clubs and getting jobs that I was, do you know what I mean? That were much older than my age. And so it could be easy for something like that to happen. So I think it's about educating our boys as well to watch out and be careful of this.
No, definitely. I'm definitely on that, Sonia. I hope I didn't come across in any way of saying that it's not important. It's very much more important, again, with the boys. And I think I was trying to get to that when I was talking about girls and how they are affectionate with the fathers, because sometimes that is the example, the first example, of a male setting a kind of like standard, whether that's about how they are if you're in a relationship with the mother, whether you're in the relationship or even you're apart from the relationship, still what kind of, how you showing them respect and how they should have that respect for themselves. Right. We've literally got 2 minutes, so if I can just get some last words from all of you about this evening, about the next steps forward, and about whether from today, we probably, because I know there are other members of this Concerned Citizens group that want to come and take part in this. I mean, on this particular platform, I can have up to 10 people, so we can put that out there. So what's your thoughts? Who wants to go first with that? And your thoughts about this evening and moving forward. Okay,
I'll go for it. So my thoughts are that when we started the radio show, it was to see, is this an issue? Does the community want us to do something about this? Does this need addressing? So I think from all the feedback that you've had from the text and what have you, is clearly saying that, yeah, this is an issue. And so I would like the community to get more involved, because we can't do this on our own. So what I would say is get in contact with, join the Concerned Citizens WhatsApp group. If you don't know the number, or, ask somebody, or maybe get in contact with Legacy, and maybe we can pass on the CC admin, the CC WhatsApp group, and let's get involved and let's start doing something about it, and not just having it be something we speak about and then it getting lost for years and never spoken about again.
Okay, thanks. So how can the is there an email or something?
No, we've just got a WhatsApp group. So all you need to do is find somebody that, or just get hold of one of our numbers, or
I don't mind if you want to know the WhatsApp number, and you can send it to me. I don't mind. You can request it at searchengine365@gmail.com, and I can send that on there. That's okay. Yeah. Sandy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to start by saying thank you to Sonia, really, to bringing this issue on the table, because I know Sonia contacted us some time ago last year, and it's important we're having this conversation. And, Charles, yourself, thank you. And thank you, Anthony, for having us. It's important we have these conversations. As we did discuss some time ago, we're talking with some statutory organization to have some support, a strong support behind us. And it's important people understand support is available. support might be available in a different settings. There were some trust issues in the past, but it's important for the community, especially victims, to come out and speak out, really, because in our communities, women, young girls, they suffer a lot because they don't know where to go. They don't know who to talk with. We have a team of counselors as well, like I mentioned from the beginning. So please, if you're concerned by, if you're really concerned, if you have an immediate concern with the issue discussed today, you can always email us at help@can.org.uk. Our counselors are free of charge. I have to say, it's free for the community. So if you just want to talk with someone, just give us a ring. Thank you.
And you did mention before about that organisation. I think it was Olive Pathway.
Olive Pathway. Yeah, exactly. We do work in partnership with some with various organizations, but Olive Pathway is a great organization, and they deal with a lot of these issues. So they have sexual abuse, they have child abuse, they have anything you can imagine, really. And I have referred, Can has referred some of our clients to her, because at Can we don't offer a holistic package, really, but she does. So sometimes people are afraid, victims are afraid because of financial means, because of accommodation, because the reasons the reasons vary, but this organization will support you with everything, really. They're great. Olive Pathway, again, we can share the details if you contact us via help@can.org.uk.
Excellent. Thanks a lot, Sandy.
And Anthony, we also put together a list of different help and support lines and organizations, and maybe we could post that on Legacy's Facebook page or something after, if people need to, be able to see and access that.
Yeah, brilliant. That would be great. Thanks a lot, Sonia. Charles, any last words? Hold on, sorry, I keep doing that. Go on. Sorry, Charles.
Yeah, I know that Afua is not here, but I would, on behalf of, concerned citizens, just like to put on record our thanks for, her, taking that bold step in coming forward and speaking out on this issue in an environment that must not have been easy. And I think you understand that, yeah. Mm. And also, as Sandy said, thanks to Sonia for her leadership on making this conversation happen this evening. I think Sonia has been brilliant, actually, in pushing this forward and bringing the group together around this. So I think Sonia deserves a lot of credit, and yourselves, yeah. And the only thing I would say finally is something that I always heard and used to say in my last profession is that your silence will not protect you. Your silence will not protect you. And, I'm saying that to those out there who might be listening, to this program, and who may feel that, that they should do something or contemplating whether to speak out on the issue. Your silence probably will not protect you, and therefore the services that are out there that Sandy spoke about, I would just encourage people to access those services, to do something proactive. It's not your fault. You are not to blame. And Afua was 100% correct when she talked about this tendency towards blaming the victim. And I think that's a message for me that we need to continue to reinforce, actually. So it's been an emotional conversation. I hope that it's done some good for our community. And, I look forward to us taking this to the next level. We've made minor steps this evening, but this is a long journey, and we must keep that in mind, that we're not going to solve this issue just in one evening, but we must keep moving forward.
Brilliant. Okay, guys, thank you very much. Nicholas, I know you didn't get in, but next time you're first in, and Afua, we'll get to see you again. All right, then, guys. Well, that's it. So until next time, thank you very much. Have a marvelous weekend, and speak to you soon. So send that information. If you send that information to me, then I'll get it on the website. So yeah, thank you, Sonia. Thanks, Charles, and thank you, Sandy. Okay, see you later. Take care. And that's it from the search engine this evening. But before I go, I need to make you aware so you don't forget. Mama Edwards' funeral is tomorrow. Tomorrow, the 5th of March. And we are going to be covering this celebration within the cathedral. It's taking place at Manchester Cathedral, and we will be covering it here on Legacy on air. But you can also, we'll also be able to view the ceremony online. There's a Facebook page. It is Mama Edwards celebration of life, and you can be able to watch it on there. The cathedral is going to be about an hour, so we're going to be covering that here from about 11:30 till 1. But after the cathedral, there's going to be a procession or a tour, a procession route that's going to be leaving from the cathedral. First of all, stopping at Karaoke Business Park in Hardwick, then going from there to Carmore Road Centre, and then from there to the Academy, the Old Juicy, and then to Westwood Street Community Centre, and then Cathlock, and then on to Mama Edwards' previous home, which is College Drive, and then expected to reach the cemetery at 2:15. So you can pop your heads out of your door and have a look and have a wave or wave a flag or maybe beat a drum to say thank you to Mama Edwards. We will be saying a bit more. You know, we have had the show with Mama Edwards. You can tap her name into the chart to see. She is a legend. She's very much in the lines of when we talk about the people like Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Harriet Tubman, Winnie Mandela. Mama falls very much in that category, you know, and it's a pleasure and an honor to be saying her name on this station, which is called Legacy, because that's what she most definitely is. She's a legacy and a stalwart to this community. Had a part in starting over 36 organizations within this community. 36. Think about that. You know, this is a woman who never retired. So we're going to be sending her off with enough blessings, enough thanks and gratitude to her, and also condolences and love and good memories to her family. So if you're not online and you can't get to see the cortege and the ceremony, then join us here tomorrow from 11:30, and we'll be covering that. So yes, thanks again for getting involved. All the texts and calls as always. Thank you to concerned citizens, to Charles, to Sonia, to Nick, to Afua, and to Sandy. Until next week, you take care. God bless, and yeah, do good things. All right, see ya. Where are we going? Okay.